What's up, the generation? Welcome to the Big Bets on Campus podcast. This is the College Basketball Conference Tournament Betting Preview Part 5. I'm Stuckey, and joining me for today's episode are my fellow BBOC co-hosts, Christian and Greg. So let's start with the ACC. Duke is obviously the favorite. I I was trying to guess what this last night, what the how much Duke would be favored by.
Can I guess? I haven't looked yet.
Yeah,
Minus 350.
it is. I think that's.
Nailed it.
Yeah, minus 350. That's what they open. I was saying, is it going to be more or less than minus 200? I mean, minus 350 is
For a
insane.
power league, it's just
It's insane. I mean, I have them at like 70%, but so like I could never bet the minus 350. But you have to also keep in mind that the reason that I thought it was going to be lower than this, I obviously like Duke is very dominant. They ran through the league, but they're not healthy. So Gungba and Evans are not going to play next weekend. I'm almost 99% sure. Shire came out and said he doubts they'll play.
Do you mean Foster?
Foster, excuse me. Foster and Gungba are going to be out. So like that, number one, that hurts their depth. Gungba draws a ton of fouls. Their defense has been elite with him. He's obviously a dominant big. Foster gives them shooting, but then you're just like in a tourney setting, you're like just really hurting your depth. And I mean, Duke since February 1st, look, they're one of the handful of best teams in the country. They are running at a plus 10% 3-point delta. They're shooting 38%. Teams are shooting 28 against them. Over the past 8 games, it's even more drastic. It's 40 to 27, and it's on high volume. So like, could there be? And they play slow. Could there be just a night where they go stone cold from three, and a team gets hot, and their depth is tested? Someone Boozer gets in foul trouble. Like what? So I don't think that they're completely invincible here. I would never recommend betting them at minus 350. If like so the question becomes, who's a team that could take them out? You know, I don't think it's very likely, but you know, Florida State is played them very, very close at Cameron. And the reason I just bring Florida State up is they're a high variance team. They shoot a ton of threes. They give up a ton of threes. Luke Laux has done a tremendous job with Florida State. I don't think people are talking about him enough. People talk about Lucas. People talk about Odom, but he's done a tremendous job. They're 31st in Torvik over the past 7 weeks. They're 10-3. Their only losses: coin flip to Virginia, easily could have won that. Coin flip at SMU, and then they lost to Miami, who they split with. Though they just scout really well. I think at their opponents, they'll zone, they'll press, they'll switch up their defenses depending on the opponent. So could Florida State going to take out Duke? Probably not, but like something like that could happen. So when looking for potential value in this board, like we just watched North Carolina play Duke. Um, I just don't see it without Caleb. Now, look, granted, it's not going to be in Cameron, and Duke is not going to be 100% healthy. But at 22 to 1, I can see someone making a case, but not my cup of tea. If I had to look somewhere, and I'm going to focus on the top of the bracket, then we'll talk about the bottom of the bracket. It's maybe Clemson. And the only reason is, no, they could lose to Vatek. Vatek won at Clemson. Now, granted, it was a bad spot for Clemson. They were coming back from that West Coast trip. ACC teams have been awful there. But Clemson's been a bit unlucky from three, but they play slow, have a ton of depth. So they have a lot of depth. So like going Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I don't think it's going to be that impactful, especially the way that they play. Bogovic turned into Steph Curry, or else Clemson would have won at Carolina the other night. And in a grinder against Duke, could they win if they get hot from three and get some 3-point variance, which they're probably due on the positive side? Duke's not. I don't know. So at 40 to 1, that would probably be the team I look at the top. Curious, Christian, to get your thoughts. Let's focus on the top of the bracket first. Duke, obviously the overwhelming favorite to come through.
I mean, shout out Florida State. I agree. I think it's a lot to ask. That could be like if an eight's going to beat a one in one of these conference leagues, that could definitely be one of them. But I agree. Clemson's the only team that I'm really seriously considering as a chance. I bet Clemson at Cameron. One small note is Clemson just hasn't been good in the ACC tournament. I just looked back the last like 7 years, like they haven't won 2 games in the ACC tournament in any of those. Um, but yeah, just having so many front court bodies to at least not get fully knocked around by Boozer, and like they were scoring in the paint and they were
And
in
then
that
there's
game.
going to be no Gungba, so it makes it easier.
Yeah, exactly. The thing about Duke that I'm just having a tough time getting over is so I was at the game where they blew it to Texas Tech and lost by 1, where Texas Tech kind of played this absolute gem of a game the last 10 minutes. And Carolina wasn't like what I'm getting at is how differently we're talking about this Duke team if they're undefeated. I know people are talking about them so highly, but we're talking about them as like maybe one of the best teams ever. It just feels silly to bet anyone else, but if I am going to bet anyone else, I think Clemson is definitely the best long shot because I would be scared of Virginia Tech. I agree with you, but I just don't think Virginia or Miami we haven't seen Miami play Duke, of course, which is just so strange that the ACC decides to schedule this way, but I just don't think Virginia or Miami is a serious threat to beat them at all. Um, Clemson is the only team that I would even look to place a bet on in this tournament.
Yeah, I will say, looking at some, well, Greg, I'm curious to get your thoughts. Any thoughts from on the top half?
I'm frustrated because all the teams that I would want to talk myself into as sneak contenders to rip Duke off are on the other side of the bracket and are going to have to sort of play through each other. We'll get to that side in a minute, but I think you guys nailed the two. Florida State in like a crazy 3-point shooting game could obviously do it. I love Locks. He's going to be a force in future years, I think, in this league. And then Clemson, I got to be honest. I was gassing Clemson up a couple weeks ago that they were due for some positive 3-point regression. I still think they are, but I am a little lower on their ceiling than I need to be to actually back them to be Duke in this type of setting. It's not lost on me that a year ago it was a similar situation, right? It was Cooper Flagg is going to miss the ACC tournament. What's going to happen? And they just rolled through it anyway. Like this team's clearly good enough to do that. That's why they're priced where they're at. I do think 2 losses though to that starting lineup make this interesting. Like if Duke was at full strength, I'm just not touching this league. But you mentioned Ngongba is a huge loss. I think Foster's a huge loss. I think him and Sarr collectively are the biggest reason their perimeter defense is so elite. And you take one of those 2 away, now you're kind of asking Caden Boozer and Isaiah Evans to step up. I don't think either of those guys are as good. So I
And
don't
look,
know.
Malik Brown's an elite defender, elite, but he can't play 40 minutes, and especially in a tourney setting, and they're not going to want him to with the tournament looming. So a lot of people are like, "Oh, well, there's no Gungba, so Evans is okay there." It's having both of them is huge for their rim D. Also, the Gungba gives you better offense near the rim and draws a ton more fouls. Um,
Wait, can I hop in? Let me hop in here real quick. I don't think Caden Boozer's that good. I
what?
don't want him as my full-time point guard.
Oh,
Not at all.
Caden. Okay, Jesus. I was like, wait. I thought you
Well,
said.
if
I thought
Caden,
you said Cam Bruiser. I was
no,
like, wait, hold
when
on. We have to have a
when
discussion.
Caden's out of the game, are you doing some funky stuff where like Isaiah Evans is not a point guard. Like they don't want to run like are you just doing inverted stuff where it's Malik and Boozer initiating
They're
that play?
gonna
Probably.
they're gonna
What's the
experiment with point Cam Boozer, and
Yeah.
that's the interesting thing from a Shire perspective because I think Foster's out for the year. He's on a scooter, and Duke people are acting like he's not coming back.
And Gungo's in a
So
boot. So like, when's he going to be good?
right. So if you're Shire, it's one of those things where like you probably have one sense of we have a 6-man rotation. Let's just make it out of this week healthy. This doesn't matter. But then on the other hand, if this is the group a week later,
You want to figure things out.
you need to experiment with it.
Yeah. So, yeah, makes it a lot more. It makes this tournament a lot more interesting. But I agree on the other booze on Caden Boozer. And he also can't shoot. I A couple questions I have before we get to the bottom half. A question for you. So like we have Florida State, Cal. I might look at Florida State there. It's weird. Cal is just on the East Coast. What are they going to do travel wise? But Cal doesn't score at the rim. They're a jump shooting team. Pippen runs the show, but he doesn't turn it over, but he can't score. Very good on D. But they've been very lucky, Cal, in the ACC. I think like just their defensive metrics are benefiting from because they never turn anyone over. They foul a lot. Team shot 30% from three in league play and 65% from the line against Cal. Both led the league. So I might look Florida State there. Here's a question for you, Christian, because you would know better than anyone. Why Wake Forest, if you just look at the numbers, their offense has been better without Nate Calmes. So they're top 40 since he went down in offensive efficiency. Their defense is bad. They just pack it in because they can't protect the rim, and then they just hope teams miss threes. Very passive defense. They don't generate turnovers, and they allow a ton of threes. But why has their offense been better without him? I mean, is it just the fact that because it just makes no sense to me? I mean, is it just
it's because
letting what's his name go nuts?
It's because Makai Mason got his head out of his ass. When I was watching Wake play Michigan,
well, and Juke Harris has just been on a heater.
Well, yes. But when Wake was playing Michigan and Texas Tech at the beginning of the season and looking like an actual team, like I was watching that team early on, thinking this is the team that's finally going to make the tournament. Since I decided to go to Wake Forest in 2018, and it still hasn't happened. And I'm watching Makai Mason from Rice in Washington, and I'm like, this dude is athletic. He moves the ball, and he can make threes, and he can attack closeouts. And then he just completely lost confidence, fell out of the rotation a bit. He had 26 at Virginia. He had 10 last night. But even just having another dude, having him, Colvin, and Juke out there is like kind of fun, and I like it. It's just like you said, defensively, the problem is they're just awful at protecting the rim and 2-point defense. But the one thing I will say, you didn't give them enough credit. They can force turnovers. They can play aggressively and kind of just try to keep teams from even getting the ball down low. And when they played Virginia Tech at home and won, mind you, Virginia Tech was missing Lawal in that one, but they forced 19 turnovers for Virginia Tech. So that was their path to beating them, and that's what they're going to try to do again in that first-round matchup.
And then the other weird thing is they said 6 days ago, they said Calmes is out for the year, and then last night he said we'll see. He's going to try to give it a go. So I don't know. Like they literally announced he's out for the year. Maybe they meant regular season. And then last night they said maybe he will try to give it a go on Tuesday. So who knows? But let's move to the bottom of the bracket. We have Virginia as the 2, Miami as the 3. Stanford and Pitt will play in the first round, as well as SMU and Syracuse. SMU is on quite a downturn. They just need to live on the bubble. Jim Root calls it the Enfield zone. Syracuse doesn't really do much for me. I mean, I will say SMU, they can't miss a 3, but teams are like shooting like 40% from 3 against them for like a month straight. But this is a team, they really, really, really miss BJ Edwards. I think like he's the ultimate glue guy. They need him on defense. They just ask too much. I mean, in order for them to win now, it's like they need Boopy and Pierre to go for like 50, 60. And that, I mean, they're going to run out of gas eventually. I don't know his status. It's an ankle injury, but they really miss him. Stanford playing well down the stretch. You're probably going to see some zones from Kyle Smith in attorney setting, a Corey, and a bunch of plumbers. I'm kidding. There's not much else. But they're playing well. Pitt has played better down the stretch, just a bit. I think their defense is just better without Cummings, who's out for the year. They play slow. They're good on the glass, but not much else to write home about. The more interesting teams is when we move up for the teams that start in the second and quarterfinals. NC State can anyone figure this team out? I mean, they're a zone defense. I don't. I guess they play zone now, and they're not pressing as much. I mean, I think Will Wade still doesn't know who this team is. Darian Williams had 2 points yesterday in a home loss to Stanford in a game in the 80s. So I get they've been running really bad from 3, both ways. So maybe they're overdue for some 3-point regression. It's a team that I could see losing to Pitt, or they could. The one thing I want to buy low on NC State, or is like looking into it, but they match up so poorly with Virginia. So poorly, and Virginia's just going to dominate the glass, dominated at the rim. Virginia blew them out in both meetings during the regular season. So, like, for me, NC State's just a non-starter, weird team. And then on the bottom half, Louisville obviously is going to bring the 3-point regression. So, on their good day, when they hit a ton of threes like they did yesterday, they can play with anybody. But I don't trust them still in quad 1A games. Michael Brown, we don't know how healthy he is. The interior D still gives me pause. And Miami's rock solid. I mean, Lucas has done a tremendous job. So if I had to guess, Miami probably gets its revenge on Louisville. We get Virginia versus Miami, which would be a pretty good battle in the semis to get to Duke. And I'd rather, if it's going to be Duke in the finals, I'd rather see Miami just because we haven't seen it yet. Christian, what are your thoughts on the bottom half of the ACC bracket?
On NC State, like Will Wade has already kind of done his job. He's proven that they're going to be good under him. Like whatever, he's riding the McNeese boys for the most part. Like obviously Darian hasn't been what they expected him to, and I don't fully
Preseason player of the year.
I know, which is insane, but I partially blame Darian for it, but I also just like don't think this team is kind of set up to use him properly, and Texas Tech just used him like incredibly well. Anyways, Will Wade is just a guy who he gets what got him in trouble. Like he gets guys, like he gets talent, he recruits guys so well, and like I'm just thinking about his LSU teams with like Tremont Waters and Nasri, Javante Smart, Skylar Mays. Like he had dudes, and like I think he's a good enough coach to get a team with athletes like this to like defend and play hard and whatever and take care of the ball. And yeah, this team can shoot, but like I just don't think they're that good. And I just don't know after finishing the season like that if this is a team that he can really like get to turn on the Jets. And like, yeah, he won a game last year in the tournament with McNeese, but like Clemson literally missed every shot in that game. That was like the fakest tournament win ever. That was like the worst upset ever. So I'm all the way out on them. I think it's going to be tough for Stanford to beat them again, just because they just played and Okori has to do so much. So I could see NC State getting there, but I agree they'll just get smoked by Virginia. SMU, really, really tough collapse for them. Honestly, there was a world where they were like a top 3 ACC team at the beginning of the season. Like I remember they beat Carolina at home and just looked really good. I was like drinking the SMU Kool-Aid, so I don't see them turning it around without BJ Edwards coming back. I don't really know his status.
It's up in the air. No one knows for sure.
Yeah. And then Louisville, I'm tired of doing the Michael Brown song and dance. They played Miami well yesterday, of course, but I don't know. I think we're setting up for a Miami Virginia game in the semis, and I would be pretty surprised if it's not one of those two teams. I guess I wouldn't be that surprised if Louisville beat Miami again, but Virginia's in the semis for sure.
Well, I will say Miami, they did play the easiest ACC schedule. Va Tech played the toughest for what that's worth. I mean, Tech played a brutal ACC schedule. Va Tech's offense is playing well, but they're shooting the lights out from three. Can they keep it up? That's against Wake. They're going to get opportunities. If they shoot really well, they'll win. If not, could get dicey for Va Tech. And then this is, I will say, this is and Louisville since February 1st, plus the 10% 3-point delta, past 8 games, plus 14%. So they've been like shooting like 42%. Teams are shooting 28%. That might bite them for a team that's so 3-point reliant. But I will say, I failed to mention one of the key storylines going into the ACC tournament is these bubble teams. We all said like the ACC is back, right? A month ago, but now Cal, who they're going to need to win, I don't know, 2 games. They'll probably need to beat Duke to get in. They'll need to beat FSU and Duke. SMU, I think they need to win now. Like they can't lose their first game. It's like they're trending out. I think Va Tech needs to get 2 wins. NC State might not be safe, especially if they lose their first game. They might be out. And I think Stanford, they probably need like 3+ wins to get back into the conversation. So you have all these teams that like at one point we were like, ooh, the ACC could have, a bunch of tourney teams. But now a lot of these teams are going to need to avoid disaster and or go on a run. Greg, what are you seeing in the bottom half?
Well, just quickly on the bubble, it also helps that the bubble collectively went 0-9 on Saturday. This is a disaster at a national level right now. But
you can't fall off the bubble if everybody He
if
throws
everybody
it.
loses. I'm on Miami, boys. I think you guys laid it out nicely, but I think this is a bit of a misprice here. 20-1 is what I'm seeing with the Canes. That's double what you can get Louisville or Virginia at. You mentioned the path here would be Louisville, Virginia, then obviously championship matchup, hopefully against Duke. We would all love to see it. I would point to the regular season meetings against Louisville and Virginia. If you look at what happened in those games for Miami, they lost those games by a combined 6 points, came down to the wire. Both of those games, the opponent shot 50% from three. I mean, we watched Louisville Miami yesterday. Louisville started like 7 for 8 from three. Khalifa was pouring in from the logo, and then Miami still had a chance to win late. You look at the Virginia matchup, they lost by 3, but they out rebounded them by 7 in that game. I think that bodes well. It's a great rebounding team that isn't going to get bullied by Virginia's bigs and get a little revenge in the path. I wish they had a more wide open side. If they were on Duke's side, I think I would honestly be betting them a little bit quicker than I am because, I believe in Louisville's upside. They can bomb you off the court any given time. Virginia is the second best team in this league for good reason. So it's not exactly the favorable draw that I wanted, but I think they're built for it. And if anything, I think you got a little extra value catching them in a better number. So that's my play. May I interest either of you in maybe throw a nickel Ibuka Okorie 300-1 Kemba Walker run here?
No, but I think you sold Miami well to me there. And like I've talked about Clemson, the reason I'm attracted to Clemson is veteran front court, but like Renault and Uday is the best possible front court defensively to play Duke. And you mix in the injuries, you mix in Jay Lucas and his defensive creativity and his understanding of the roster without Caleb Foster. I don't think I was clear enough with how much I am kind of anti-Caden Boozer, to be honest. Like Caleb Foster would get knocked by people for like not scoring enough and stuff, but like he did exactly what this team needs him to do. Like he had moments like it was at Louisville when he like can't get more aggressive going to the basket. Like his way of just quarterbacking and being there defensively and understanding what to do. Like Caden's just kind of like a little loose. Like he's just trying to push in transition and like obviously the 3-point shooting. I don't want him playing 30 minutes. I think they're a much worse team with him playing 30 minutes. I'm not saying they're not still by far the best team in the league, but like you said, Greg, Miami was right there against Virginia and Louisville, and I thought they were honestly deserved to win both those games. You talk about the Lucas layer and the fact that Miami's the wild card for Duke. Duke hasn't seen them yet, and this is not the best form of Duke. Injuries at this point of the season is always the most difficult thing to figure out when handicapping is how much, like you look at Arkansas yesterday without Acuff, it's like, okay, well, I guess if Malik Thomas isn't going to miss a 3, they're fine. But I don't know. I think I'm not as worried about Gongba because I like Malik Brown so much, but Caleb Foster's a real issue. Especially when it's a front court like Uday and Renault that can make Boozer not go for 30. And he has to trust his teammates more.
I also will say, though, in regards to Brown, like I mentioned earlier, one of the reasons he's so effective, I mean, his energy, like he only plays what, like normally 20, 25
He
minutes?
played 30 yesterday. But
I know, but I'm saying like if he has to play 30 to 35, is he as effective on a 4 games in 4 days, right? Like, so that's where I think not having Gongba could really hurt. All right. Good stuff there. Let's move on to the Big 12. Big 12 will also kick off on Tuesday at T-Mobile in Kansas City. It's a big one. There are 16 teams. Arizona is the top seed and favorite at around even money. Houston is the 2 seed, the second favorite around 2-1. And Kansas the 3 seed around 10-1. Iowa State is next. Is actually better odds, even though they play in the second round as the 5 seed. They're around 7-8-1. Texas Tech's the 4 seed, but they're 18-1. A lot of that is no topping. And injuries were a huge storyline of the Big 12 down the stretch. BYU, not the same team without Saunders. Texas Tech, not the same team without Toppin. Also, both those teams now really lack depth. They already lack depth. Now it's even more of an issue, which is going to become problematic in a setting where, I mean, BYU, they play in the first round. They dropped to the 10 seed. They're not winning, 5 games in 5 days, which is why they're 100-1. I get the Bansa can take over any game, but especially away from home, they're 337th per Hasametrics. Easy cross off BYU. I get why some people want to throw some couch change there. And the same thing with Texas Tech, like without their depth, without Toppin. I get McCaslin, but nope, no thank you there. And I can't get to the price on Arizona at even money. I make them around like 40%, which is a lot of respect, but I think around even money is disrespectful to the rest of the Big 12. Although they do get the benefit of if chalk holds Texas Tech without Toppin in the semis. Greg, I'll go to you. What are you seeing in the Big 12?
Yeah, I'm about where you are. I mean, I could easily see Arizona just running through this, but it's a league full of teams that I think are Final Four contenders, a few national title contenders. So, it makes you want to stretch outside that group of the top two. Houston at plus 220. I would just wait to bet them in a potential game against Arizona. If you believe Houston can win that game, still get them at plus money by the time you get there. For me, I'm looking at two teams that I think are appetizing at the current price. I like Kansas 8-1. I like their draw a lot. I think they handle that first matchup against TCU. It's likely going to be TCU. Could, I guess, be Colorado, Oklahoma State. But if you envision them in a semi, they already handled Houston well. I think they have had Peterson on the floor more consistently than we expected 2 weeks ago at this point. And they found some answers, even though there have obviously been a lot of downs and the losing stretch wasn't great. We know that in big games, they've been steady. Now they are going to have Allen Fieldhouse behind them, but you're basically saying, can we get Peterson at his best for 30 minutes to win 2 games against Houston and Arizona? At 8-1, I think that's a reasonable bet. And then Iowa State is the team I want to bet here, but I just hate the draw. Plus 750 for them. Texas Tech got them already. Now, no Toppin, revenge, sure. But can they go Texas Tech, then Arizona in the semi, then a Houston? That sounds like a big ask of this group that really relies on 3 guys. I love those 3 guys, and I think they have championship DNA within them and want to go out on a high note. And I think at their best, they're absolutely capable of rattling off those 3 straight wins. But to me, if you could flip the draw, Iowa State and Kansas, I'd be all over Iowa State if the price stayed the same. Kansas at 8-1 is probably my favorite play here, just looking at the way it shook out.
Yeah, I'm thinking about Iowa State. I wanted like 850. I make them like 11%. Remember, it's Hilton South. So they haven't been like they're 300 and I mean they're not they haven't been the same team away from home, but they're gonna have like a home court semi edge here along with Kansas. But they'll have a huge contingent of fans. And I think we're like buying low on Iowa State. They finally woke up out of a slumber in that second half against Arizona State. But I think what happened is they beat Kansas and Houston on that weekend. And then they had to go to BYU in altitude, to Utah. And then they came home for Texas Tech after that altitude trip. And then they had to go immediately to Arizona. That's just a brutal 2-week stretch after you had 2 top 5 wins. Still hung over against Arizona State. And I think they finally woke up. They're 356th in momentum. They haven't made a 3. I think they're shooting 32% from 3 since February 1st. So like home contingent, I can see Iowa State. I wanted a little better price, but that's who I think I'm considering. You have the revenge, and they match up decent against Arizona. I think they just caught them at a bad spot. And Texas Tech. I get Texas Tech won at Hilton, but they made some crazy shots in that game. I don't know if I can trust Kansas away from home. They're just so inconsistent. You just never know what you're going to get. Their offense just is, their defense is going to show up. But yeah, if I had to go a second pick, I think I would agree with you. I will say, though, here's 2 interesting tidbits. TCU plays up. They play up against everybody, and they should have won at Kansas. They completely melted down in Allen Fieldhouse, which is very hard to do. They had that game completely in control, lost in overtime. But did you know, and this is, I will not, this is not for the future purposes, but did you know, TCU's playing incredible, played their way into the field already, in my opinion, 8-2 since February 1st. Per Torvik, since February 1st, has been better than TCU by 1 spot? Colorado. They are top 50 teams since February 1st, 1 spot ahead of TCU, and it's not 3-point driven. And they're an extremely young team playing its best ball. So like they've come together, they figured some things out. We'll see if they get Ranchik back from injury. I think he'll be questionable in that first game. So that first game against Oklahoma State team that lost Fala, they're big for the year. That first game and then against TCU could be interesting. The only thing is, do I trust Colorado away from home? They are not the same team away from that altitude. But Christian, curious to get your thoughts at the top and where you're seeing any potential value in the Big 12.
Colorado beat the crap out of TCU at home. They're a tough matchup, especially with Ranchik in there, just with the size in the front court, and TCU's guards didn't punish them the way that some of these teams. My issue with Colorado is they've just gotten clobbered by some of the best teams in the league.
Yeah, I'm not saying for a future. I'm saying for that first meeting
Sure.
against Oak State and then potentially against TCU, they could win 2 games. And Oklahoma State needs the score at the rim. That's hard to do against this Colorado team with all their size. And Oak State hasn't won a game in regulation since February 4th. But they could beat TCU as well. But yeah.
So I am out on Iowa State.
Ooh.
I'm out on Iowa State.
In this tourney or in general?
In general. But I want to say in this tournament, 2024, they won every game by double digits. And that environment was rocking. Like, it felt like a home environment. Last year, they crushed Cincinnati and then lost to BYU in a game where BYU hit 18 threes. But in terms of Otzelberger and Iowa State, he's always gotten, high effort from these guys. This tournament means a lot for them, and there really are a ton of Iowa State fans there. They'll be favored against
They lost
Texas
to BYU last year, by the way, when Gilbert and Lipsy didn't play. So that you got to mention that too. And BYU made 18 threes, and it still was 96-92.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying they've been fantastic in this tournament.
Yeah.
The reason I say I'm out on them, I totally understand the scheduling difficulty at the end of the season, but man, offensively, they've just looked really bad in for stretches. And it's just like Joshua Jefferson feeling the need to shoulder stuff, like Tamin Lipsey just not being able to give you a real dimension of a threat at the point guard position to score. And it's like you need guys like Bateman and Heisey to shoot. I think that, like I said, they'll be favored against Texas Tech. I have zero faith in them against Arizona. Their one outlet, though, is if something happens to Arizona, and there's a reason Cincinnati is the 6th best odds to win this tournament. And Cincinnati's been playing much better. I know people have cooled off the hype a little bit just because they couldn't keep just not losing. But, man, Cincinnati, when they played Arizona, they lost 77-51. At that time, you're getting 18 minutes from Shanabayev,
It was tied at half, too, in Arizona. They just got trucked.
Not a single three-pointer was hit by their starting lineup. I think this could be a gross game in the low 60s. I think Cincinnati might have beat a top 3 team that has a chance to beat. I think Cincinnati has a better chance to beat Arizona than Texas Tech or Iowa State. Do I think they can then go turn around and then beat Kansas or Houston on the other side of the bracket? That's a lot to ask, but if you bet them at 45-1 and they get to the championship, you'll have an opportunity to get out of there. So Cincinnati is definitely my favorite long shot here. I'm not really afraid of UCF for them to take care of business there, but Cincinnati can make Arizona play a game different from the types of games they're playing against Iowa State and Texas Tech. So I think Cincinnati's definitely worth a look.
Yeah, I mean, the problem for me is that, number one, since he has been better, they changed the lineup. They got healthier in the backcourt, playing basically with 2-point guards. They have elite size. Part of that has been 3-point fuel, though. I mean, they're since February 1 shooting 43% from 3.
But Day Thomas can shoot.
I know, but they're not a 43% 3-point shooting, and teams are shooting only 29%. So that's helped it a little, but they're no doubt a different team. Completely different with some of the lineup changes, but it's two things can be true. They're also been aided by some 3-point luck. I mean, even yesterday against TCU, they shot what 40+%. TCU only shot 26%, and they lost that game. Can I see Cincy the third game in 3 days beating a rested Arizona team? That's where it gets tricky for me. Yeah, they'd have to ugly it up, but I can't quite get there. I would need, what do I have Cincy at? Yeah, I would need you can find them 80-1. I need 200-1. What else do I want to talk about? Arizona State's playing better. on the backs of their defense. They have an interesting game against Baylor. Baylor's offense has been really good. I mean, they've been a top 30 team since February 1st. They still have point guard issues. They'll turn it over, and they can't defend at the rim. But do they break out the zone? We've seen Drew do that. Do they break out the zone against Arizona State in that first game? And Arizona State's only really seen zone in one game this year against Colorado in a loss. And they really profile as a team to zone. They're not great shooting team. So that's an interesting storyline. You know what bet I'm probably going to make in the first round? Kansas State catching double digits. They against BYU. First of all, BYU coming off that big win against Texas Tech. They have no depth. Kansas State's going to run, try and wear them down. BYU's 337th away from home. But this Kansas State team, they're 9th away from home. They've had injuries. They've gotten healthier. They got McGriff back. They can't rebound at all, but BYU's not a good rebounding team. And BYU won't turn Kansas State over, which is a huge issue. Kansas State's playing in Kansas City. They've been a much better team since Tang has gone. Maybe there was some other issues going on. I think Kansas State getting a big number is worth a look. I think they can keep it close against BYU. And then, do I have anything else? Not really. I mean, UCF, they cratered down the stretch. It's been ugly to watch. West Virginia, they just don't have the horses. They're going to slow games down. They're well coached, good defense. Just don't have the horses on offense. But I think that's all of the notes. I think I'm going to go with Iowa State. I'm going to try and shop around. I would have loved like an 850, 900. Not sure.
You guys got to tell me how Iowa State can beat Arizona.
I mean,
I understand that Big Monday was not Iowa State at their best, but like, I don't see it at all.
I mean, they swept them last year. And
Just make threes, right?
Yeah. Here's the thing. Arizona is like, I don't think that they're completely invincible in a tourney setting because they don't shoot threes. So if a team is red hot, like against them, it just becomes a math issue. And Iowa State is certainly capable of getting hot from the perimeter. I mean, Arizona's floor is so high. That's the thing. And they're obviously one of the 5 best teams in the sport. But I'm just saying, like, if Iowa State gets hot from 3, there's I think that there's a path there. And Arizona struggled some with Iowa State last year. I mean, they had that miracle win because Caleb Love hit that shot, and then they got blown out on the road. But, I mean, yeah, Arizona probably wins more times than not, but I don't think it's completely out of the question that Iowa State beats them. Greg,
I mean,
would you agree?
the same thing I said about Duke. Like, Arizona lost, and the refs were absolutely awful in that game in Lawrence. And I understand there was no Darren Peterson, but in the Texas Tech game, another Texas Tech gem to steal one. Like, this, the idea of the 3-point regression being the 3-point thing being a problem, I don't know. I'm out on that. Go ahead, Greg.
No, it's like I said, I wish it was a potential championship meeting instead of the semi. I don't love where Iowa State sits in the draw. But yeah, I think just in general, the whole Zona sell pitch is just they don't shoot enough threes. At any given game, if a team gets hot, that's what you need to do to beat Arizona. It's like the only way to beat Arizona. But a team with the most prolific 3-point shooter in the world is a pretty good one to try and pitch you on that for. You need a great Momcilovic game. You need like a 7 for 10 from 3 night from Milan. I don't think that's out of the question in that matchup. I think the starters were 3 for 19 in the first game, lost by 16. I mean, you got to get to 9 for 19. Can you do that in one game? I think they could.
Let me add this in. I understand the 3-point, like hitting a lot more threes than them is like the logical path to beating them. But the way I see it is there's a game from Friday, November 14th that I think sneakily tells the story. And it's the UCLA only lost 69-65 to Arizona. You got to have there's got to be less possessions in the game. You got to make it a half-court game. Houston.
Well, yeah, number one, you got to keep them out of transition.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like Houston, it was 73-66. Like Texas Tech made it a half-court game. Like they took care of the ball. They used the clock. Like that's how you beat them. And Iowa State, if they're going to beat them in Ames and it's like a whole and they're hitting threes, like it's because they're like running it up and like I don't know, like I don't see them outscoring Arizona and being able to score like 80, 70, 80 to like beat them. And if it's in the half court, Arizona's half court offense is just so much more potent. I don't know. I know I'm the one. I have the easier side of the argument here because I'm.
No, I agree.
saying the
I mean,
best team in
obviously
the country.
Arizona's are going to be a favorite, but like,
Yeah.
they're even money to win the tournament, and Iowa State's like 8 to 1 ish. So that's
I might be too hard on Iowa State. I just don't think they're a top 10 team.
they haven't. I think Jefferson. I mean, part of it. I'm telling you, part of it was the travel, and but like they ask a lot of one core guy, which is a one core group of guys. Jefferson didn't look at this. You mentioned their offense. Jefferson didn't look the same down the stretch, and he might just be worn down. So Iowa State for their tourney chances might be better off like with an early exit here. I always think that about some teams, right, that are relying on just a few guys. Why go on like win 4 games in 4 days? Just wear yourself down some more. The difference between like a 2 and a 3 seed. Where obviously they're going to try to win, but it might end up being better off if you only play 2 games. So anyway, official pick, who are you going to go with?
I think Zona wins,
Yeah.
but I'm betting Kansas. That's my official bet.
I'm betting I like Houston. I have a 33%. So I would need a little bit more. They're 331st in consistency, 333rd away from home. They take bad shots. Here's the thing with Houston. And did they go 0-3 against I mean, they didn't they go 0-3 against they lost to Iowa State, Arizona, and Kansas and split with Texas Tech. Yeah, they didn't beat Iowa State, Arizona, or Kansas. I don't think Houston's going to win the national title. Like, I don't think that could they? Yeah, I mean, but a lot of people say that name, like when you're like, who do you pick to win it? Like after the first 4, a lot of people will say Houston. Their offense was supposed to be this year uber elite to make up for the drop in defense, right? So their defense is not as good. They're usually like number 1. It's defense still really good. Like on KenPom, they're like 6th. Effective field goal, they're like 20. So it's dropped. They missed, some of their bigs. They missed Roberts, and so their offense was supposed to be better. And on the surface, yeah, the ceiling is higher because you have Flemings who's going to play at the next level. But I don't know if he's hit a bit of a wall. I mean, he's 8 of 26 from 3 over his past 11 games. And if you look, last year, their adjusted offensive efficiency was 12th. This year, it's 17th. So in order for them to win the national title, because their defense has fallen off, they need their offense to be better than it was last year and by a decent amount. And it can't be 17th because they take too many bad shots. They go through too many droughts. They never get to the line. They foul too much. I mean, they're 364th in average 2-point attempt distance. That's tough to beat the elite teams doing that. So I don't know. I think
exact same number was last year, by the way.
Yeah, they're not bad. They're not their offense. I would argue you could argue it's the same, maybe with a little higher ceiling of Fleming's, but it's not significantly better. And I think their defense is not close to as elite as it was. So I don't think this team overall is as good. Now with Fleming, he's capable of going for like 40, right? And that unlocks like maybe a little bit of upside in a big game. But I don't know. I'm out on Houston as like a national title contender. Could be wrong. What do you think, Christian?
I'm still in on them as a title contender. It's obviously a little scarier. The knock that I've gone to, a lot of people have said this too, is just they wanted Tugler to become what Roberts was, as a guy that you could slow the game down with, like get a post touch to, and they could go score, and that just hasn't happened at all. Just to push back on some of your notions, they have a higher offensive rating as a team this year. The sport is just better. They're second best in the country at taking care of it, and the 3-point percentage is the biggest difference. But like
their offense, I think their offense is better with a higher seed. But I mean, yeah, to your point, the sport is better, but it's marginal, right? It's like 123,
right?
So I think they need to be like a higher degree better because I do think that their defense is significantly worse.
I agree. I still just think that they have a like of the teams outside the top four, they're just the type of team that I think they're the top option of a team that could upset them. And a sneaky layer is Chase McCarty has been really good lately. He hit 6 threes against Oklahoma State. He's played 20 average like 20 minutes a game over the last four after like not really being a factor. Just having another guy who can like you're right, they have to be a very good offensive team to make a run in the tournament because their defense isn't going to like completely cut the water off.
Yeah.
My bet for this tournament is Cincinnati. I'm with Greg. Like I would look potentially at betting Houston against Arizona in the final, and the number wouldn't be that different. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't given Kansas enough thought. I'm just having a tough time wrapping my head around Kansas, to be honest.
They're weird team. And is Peterson going to stay locked in and healthy throughout? By the way, one thing we didn't mention, LED courts for this.
I'm out on those too.
I
I'm out on Iowa State. I'm out on the LED.
I've heard some people that I respect talk about unders being potentially profitable early on. Maybe because just the way that it looks, the ball might bounce a little different. I don't know. I haven't dug into that, but that's something to watch because this has only been used in like an NBA All-Star game and then I think in like a Euro League. So that'll be new.
Quickly on Kansas, since I made the pitch for him, 5 straight games that he's played between 29 and 35 minutes. I mean, the issues have essentially gone away for 2.5 weeks. That doesn't get either of your attention. We've just seen enough of the ins and outs. It's like it could rear its ugly head at any moment.
Yeah, but I mean, like, is it like 3 or 4 games in a row? And like
5 games.
But they lost 3 of them, I think is the problem.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying 3 games in 3 days. Like, does he have like cramps and does he something strain something? And so it's like, hey, precautionary. Like the reason to be precautionary goes way up. Like if you're playing like your 3rd game in 3 days, right? So like you're like, oh, I tweaked this. So I think like the chances of him sitting out are obviously much higher than any other player. But like in this particular setting before the NCAA tournament, I could see it. But your point's well taken. All
My
right,
problem is just
yeah.
I'm tired of El Marco and Jamari running around. I think Bill Self is too.
Yeah.
I want some more Cole Rosario. I actually kind of like him.
Oh, yuck.
You're crazy. All right. Let's move on to CUSA, which used to be, man, I remember when this was played in Frisco. They had curtains separating the gyms. We could always look at the under, but now it's in Huntsville. This league is completely wide open, in my opinion. 10 teams make it. Sorry, UTEP in Delaware. This will take place between March 10th and 14th, as in Huntsville, as I mentioned. Liberty is not the favorite, as many might think. They kind of stumbled down the stretch. They do have the best offense, but their defense was 10th best in the league. They don't have a lot of athleticism. Zach Cleveland's amazing. Richie McKay's system's awesome. They run beautiful offense. They have shooters all over, but they're not the most athletic team, and they struggle with athleticism. And some of the most athletic teams in this league either beat them or took them to overtime. The question is, did Liberty just get bored and kind of check out a bit down the stretch? Or is there something more there? Their defense, regardless, has issues. They're plus 310 to win it. The favorite is Sam Houston, the 2 seed, at 2-1. They have some injuries, though. I mean, they lost a couple guys for the year. My guy Po Boy I think he's going to be back. Po Boy King. He's very one of their better offensive players. He's been out. I think that was precautionary, but they've had a number of injuries. Cashy Nat has been incredible for them, but they have a really young backcourt. In February, they were plus 18% 3-point delta, so they really benefited there. I had no interest at that price. All these teams, there's not much separating them. The 3 seeds, Western Kentucky, they went on a huge run in February, but a lot of that was 3-point driven, although they did get Teagan Moore is probably the most important player back, and it coincided with some 3-point luck, and then they lost 2 to close the year. They have great depth. They do play fast. The 4 seed, La Tech, will take on Middle Tennessee. The 5 seed, the 6 is Kennesaw State. Interesting team. They lost arguably their best player early in the year, got kicked off the team in Cottle. RJ Johnson's been incredible at point guard in his steed. They also have great depth. They're long, they're athletic. And then you have teams playing in the first round. FIU, that's a team that just they run and gun, play as fast as possible. Hectic games, turn it over, force turnovers. Not much else to say. Missouri State is the 9 seed. I love Osei Bonso, but they have no depth at all, so I can't see them winning, 4 games in 4 days. Jacksonville State, the 7 seed. Harper, the coach, pretty good in these settings historically, for what it's worth. And then the 10 seeds, New Mexico State. Interesting storyline. New Mexico State, Jamel Jones, really good player. Their defense is shaky, though. They did sweep Jacksonville State, who they'll play in the first round, and their coach used to be at Sam Houston State, and they beat them in their only meeting. That's who they would play if they do beat Jacksonville State for a third time. Got some other things I'll mention on some of these teams, but Greg, curious to get your thoughts on where you see value or where you're looking in CUSA.
I think you nailed it. It's wide open. You look at the top 2 seeds in this tournament, they whimpered down the stretch of the regular season. Liberty lost 3 of 5. Sam Houston lost 2 straight. One of those 2 Liberty. But I'm looking at a team that's hot right now at almost 10-1 plus 950. I'm going to take a flyer on the 5 seed Middle Tennessee here. Here's my pitch. They've won 5 straight. Every senior on this roster has won their opening round game in this conference tournament every single year they've been at Middle Tennessee. That Louisiana Tech matchup in the 4-5 game, they blitzed them, beat them by 37 at home in early January.
You know what happened in that game?
What specifically?
Go look at that box score. They made 20. They went 23 of 44 from 3, by the way, in that game.
Yeah, could miss. And then lost by 1 on the other, so they split. But I like that matchup for them. They basically like a great 3-point volume advantage team, right? They run teams off the 3-point line, limit attempts, and then they shoot a ton. You look at games they played against the contenders in this league. When they beat Louisiana Tech, they shot 44 threes to 18. When they beat Sam Houston, they shot 29 threes to 11. I like the math in that game, or those potential games in the championship. And then you look at Liberty, they only played once this year, lost by 16 in that game. And did not make their threes, only shot 33%. But we know this, if you're trying to pick an upset, you want teams that have a lot of 3-point variance. And I think their size theoretically should be able to bother a pretty small Liberty team that goes 4 guards and then 6'7" in the front court. Middle Tennessee's pretty huge at all positions. I just think it's good value, plus 950. And I would throw out this, some lineup stuff's been going on with Middle Tennessee. Trey Green's back in the starting lineup. And he's hit 10 threes in their last 2 games. He only played 3 minutes in that first meeting against Liberty. He started basically the whole first month of the season, didn't start all of conference play, and he's back in playing 27 and 28 minutes in their last 2. So we'll see exactly what happens with it, but at plus 950 in a wide open league, that's my ticket.
All right, well, Greg, I'll let the people decide who they want to side with. I'm going to make a case for La Tech.
Woo!
Since February 5th, they're the best team in this league. 118th in the country. Why do I pick that random date? That's when Caden Cooper came back. I have no idea what was going on. He was benched. Their best player. He is bad on offense. He is his first game back when they rolled Sam Houston State. He had like 17 rebounds and 4 steals. The ultimate hustle player, long defensive guy. He was their senior captain. He was first team all league. He got benched for weeks. Something was going on there. It wasn't an injury. And then he came back, and now he's coming off the bench, and this is a whole different team. Now, they cannot, and it has nothing to do with three-point data. They cannot shoot. They can't shoot it forward. Only Dudley. They have one shooter in Dudley. That's it. But they have the best defense. They can offensive rebound. They're super athletic. They defend at the rim. I can't figure. I will admit I can't figure out Middle Tennessee, and they play tons of close games. They're up and down. So La Tech could easily lose that game. But La Tech just went to Liberty, destroyed them. They just beat Delaware by 55. I get Delaware's down to like 4 guys. But this team closed the year strong. It's a different team now. I don't know what happened for a month and a half with Cooper. They had some other injuries as well. I think Scooter should be back. He missed a couple games towards the end of the year, but I know they can't shoot. The offense can be so ugly, but this is a super athletic, elite defensive team that's been the best in the league over the last 6 weeks. So, yeah, I'm 11-1 on La Tech. I'm throwing some change at it. Christian, what are you seeing in CUSA?
I'm with you, Stuckey. I like La Tech. Um, Beating a team by 50 leading into the tournament is pretty good for the morale and the momentum. And that's a Delaware team that had just beat Sam Houston State, played Western Kentucky in overtime, Jacksonville State in overtime. Um,
It also
and I'm
came on
still
the
have,
road after they won at Liberty.
yeah. And I mean, I know Delaware's been pretty bad this year. I still have in my head that that is a team that was still capable of having a first half lead in Provo in November. Um, but yeah, I understand it can be gross. I understand they don't take care of the basketball great, but I'm with you on what Caden Cooper is a special defender, and they've been playing the best ball. You kind of hit all my main points, but that was the team that jumped out to me for sure. And they've already proven they can beat the best teams in the league.
Yeah, they could beat or lose to anyone. I mean, when you bet them, if they make threes, they're winning this. Now, will they? Probably not. They're one of the worst shooting teams in the country. But if they
Can I
get any,
rebuttal?
yeah. What the last thing I'll say though is they're not 3-point reliant. So like on a neutral court, sometimes I like that, right? Like they in this league, they're just going to rely on like offensive rebounds, getting to the rim, creating turnovers, hustle, athleticism. They don't need they never shoot well, so it doesn't matter if they don't. But go ahead. Now
You
they do
alluded.
give up a ton of threes, so they could get at like Middle Tennessee went 22 of 44.
Yeah, it's gonna be like a 23-point attempt advantage to Tennessee, but again, maybe they miss them all.
Yeah. It's going to be
So
agreed.
to your point, Stout, you alluded to this. Caden Cooper, mysterious, weird stuff in the middle of the season. Combined in 2 games against Middle Tennessee, Caden Cooper, 0 points and 3 rebounds in 25 minutes in those 2 games. Now
Yeah, the
the
first
first
one
one,
he barely played though, right?
it was 18 minutes in the first one. They lost by 37. He wasn't in foul trouble. He also hadn't been benched up to that point in the season. Just weird.
Yeah,
And
something was
then
going on with the whole team. That's that like I don't know. And then he got benched. I don't know what was going on, but
the
there was
second
something
one he
going
got
on.
benched and they won. So that's a good data point for your guys' side here. But yeah, just kind of strange. The only 2 scoreless games of the season for him, the 2 Middle Tennessee games.
Yeah, it's interesting. They don't need him to score though. If he scores, it's all bonus. Now he's capable of going for like 18. It's like in transition off steals, but he is a horrendous shooter. All right, anything else you want to mention, Christian? Musa?
Um, no, except Liberty, as great as Liberty is offensively, as good as Cleveland is, they're the worst defensive rebounding and offensive rebounding team in the country. Like, I don't like that.
Yeah,
Not in the country. I'm in the conference. I'm in the
yeah.
conference.
They're not. They don't, I mean, they never defensive rebound because they get back. I mean, they never offensive rebound because they get back. But yeah, and then they lack size. Their defense is very questionable. Now they could just out execute everyone and if they hit their threes, but uh, yeah, no thanks at 310. I have them at like 20%, so I would need like 5-1. It's a wide open league. Like if you filter for like different time periods, it's like they're all like around the same. You have another team jump up like based on 3-point variance. So um, yeah, I'm gonna ride with La Tech. Christian agrees with me. Greg is rolling with the Blue Raiders. That's the one team I really don't. I feel like I don't have a good feel on. All right, one final conference to get to in this episode, and that's the Big Ten. Recording this on Sunday night after the Michigan State game. Michigan pulled away from Michigan State late, and the Iowa-Nebraska game where Nebraska had an incredible meltdown, missed a bunch of free throws late. Iowa ties it with a three, and then, man, I hope no one out there had Iowa +6 because that was cruel in the end. The 9-0 Nebraska run in the final minute or so to win by 9. Also, if anyone bet the Michigan State game at 9.5, that last minute probably took about 30 years off your life. And then Michigan State finally just decided we're just going to run the clock all the way down at the end and then pull up for a shot. A very, very long minute if you bet either side. But as a result of those two results, we have a bracket, we have odds. The Big Ten tournament will kick off on Tuesday with two playing games. Well, they're first round games, I should say. But there are really four teams that have no chance, and Maryland and Oregon and Penn State and Northwestern. And then we get a bunch more teams in action on Wednesday in the second round. There are four teams who get a double bye to the third round. That's Ohio State, Wisconsin, Purdue, and UCLA. And then the top four seeds get byes to the quarters, which will begin on Friday. That's top seed Michigan, two seed Nebraska, three seed Michigan State, and four seed Illinois. From a odds perspective, as you might imagine, Michigan is the favorite, right around even money. Illinois next up at around plus 460 at one book that I'm looking at now. Purdue 6-1, Michigan State plus 650, Nebraska 10-1. Then you start to get into some longer shots, starting with Wisconsin at 30-1. Michigan's obviously dominated this league all year, but are they vulnerable? And if so, how and why? Greg, I know this is your baby. What are your thoughts on Michigan in the top half? I mean, Illinois has the offense. And look, I mean, this is an Illinois team since February 1st, they're fifth, Michigan's third. One of the differences has been that Illinois has not made their shots. Michigan has. I mean, Michigan since February 1st is shooting 41% from three, and teams are shooting 28% against them. So you're probably going to need, you can't, Michigan, here's the thing. If Michigan's going to hit their threes, and you, good night, right? It's kind of like when Florida is hitting their threes, when Duke, like you're going to need somewhat of an off shooting night from Michigan, and you're going to need to hit some outside shots against them. Illinois is certainly capable. Wisconsin, I don't know. Do we know the status of Nolan Winter?
It didn't sound good, but I haven't heard formal ruling out.
Didn't matter against Purdue, who's a mess right now, but he is important for them. But they have shot makers. They've obviously played up. They have some variance in them because of their shot making. And both of those teams, when healthy, have bigs that can shoot. And that's one of the keys to beating this Michigan team. Ohio State is also red hot. They've also shot very well. I mean, one of the reasons you have Bynum's emergence, but they're shooting 43% from three since February 1st. Can they keep that up? And can they keep that up away from home where they haven't been as potent? So, Greg, I'll start with you. What do you make of the top half of the bracket in the Big Ten? Help us make sense of it.
I think Michigan is a rightful favorite. I was curious what they'd open at. Minus 135 is what I'm seeing with one book. And I think that feels right. I mean, through a 20-game sample size at this point, the reality with this league, Michigan is a complete team. And the other four contenders in this league, maybe five if you want to include Wisconsin, they might have earned their way into that group, are not. There's great offenses with iffy defenses like Illinois, Purdue. I think Wisconsin qualifies. And then there's great defenses with iffy offenses. That's Nebraska and Michigan State. So, I think it's hard to envision any one team feeling great in a Michigan matchup, but you also need a favorable draw with reasons to believe you're going to get to a Michigan matchup. And I told you guys this afternoon when before we broke so I could go to the game, I was looking at Illinois. I like the idea of an Illinois matchup again with Michigan. I think they, on paper, check all the boxes that you want against Michigan. A great rebounding team that's a high three-point variance team with stretch fives that can pull Mara out. Problem, that matchup went about as disastrously as it could have in Champaign. I don't know if it will again. And Wagler, I think, is going to have his hands full with Yaxel and even potentially Merez picking him up full court the way he did with Sturts. Here's my problem with Illinois. I came in thinking I'd want them to be my bet here. I hate the price. I mean, I'm seeing plus 425. I was hoping at least 6-1 for Illinois for that to be palatable for me. You can't really convince me in that little pot at the top of the bracket, Illinois and Wisconsin. If Wisconsin's 35-1 and Illinois is 4-1, you can't really convince me to back the Illini. I mean, Wisconsin already went to Champaign and beat them. I understand Nolan Winter may be out, but they just proved it wasn't that big of a deal. They still got two stretch bigs in Rapp and Belauskas. And bottom line, Boyd and Blackwell are a handful against any perimeter defense in this league. They're the only team that went and beat Michigan anywhere in conference play. And we're 1-for-1 in that in Ann Arbor. So, I'm staring at that. I did not think Wisconsin would be 35-1. That's, 30 plus more than Illinois is at 4-1. I want Illinois to be my bet here, but I think I'm going to have to talk my way into a minor Wisconsin ticket on the top half of the bracket.
And in regards to Michigan, yeah, I mean, Illinois didn't make shots, which they need to do against Michigan. Their bigs need to make shots because number one, you need the math there, but number two, when you're missing threes, there's long rebounds, and that's also going to kind of lead to more transition for Michigan, which you just can't have because they're so deadly there. But what are your thoughts on the loss of Kason, as far as depth in the backcourt? Do you think it's impactful? They'll be okay. Like, in what scenario could it hurt, or do you think it's a non-factor?
I think they're going to be better than people expect, barring Cadeau foul trouble games. I mean, against Michigan State tonight, Cadeau was a non-factor, but he was on the floor. He was still facilitating, running the offense. They really did not skip a beat at all as long as he's out there. The issue is if you have to see Roddy Gale and the Mari Burnett lineups that are not the primary look. Those guys have barely ran a backcourt together this year, and it didn't fare overly well last year. So you're really looking, in terms of vulnerability, you're looking for a team that can force Cadeau to guard. Michigan's superpower is that they can put Yaxel on point guards and sort of hide Cadeau defensively at times from himself. I look at this. That's what they did with Wagler, right? Just stick Yaxel on him against Wisconsin. It's Boyd and Blackwell. You can't hide Cadeau on, Rhodey in the corner, really. He's got to take one of those matchups. So the more I look at this, I think I am going to play the Badgers. And then there's a team on the bottom half of the bracket, too, that has my eye. I don't know if we want to go there right now.
Yeah, I think we'll get to the bottom half in just a moment. The other, like, where else could Michigan potentially be vulnerable? It's speaking like just in the tournament down the line. It's a specific type of team that they'd have to play, but you saw Iowa is so much worse athletically, physically, but their defense does force a lot of turnovers, and that almost cost Michigan the game against Iowa. So just thinking like bigger picture, like down the line, like Elite Eight, like a team that can force Michigan into turnovers like that, does that rear its ugly head down the line? Do you have any thoughts there? Is that going to be maybe their undoing?
It can be. It can be. I'll throw to Christian in a second, but I gotta be honest, the biggest obstacle Michigan's had in 20 conference games has been the games they just don't get up for. And I know that's a little bit of a cop-out, but Iowa was sandwiched in between clinching the game in Champaign, Merez Johnson return night, and then a rivalry game where you're going to cut down nets after against Michigan State. And their other four worst performances of the league were Penn State, Minnesota. I'm forgetting who the third was. Maybe Maryland. They were on the ropes at Maryland. They really just have been like a we wake up against big games team. And I kind of downplayed that for a couple months. That can't be it. That's not serious. The more I watch this team, I think it is. I think Yaxel Lendeborg just does not show up for games that are not spotlight games, and he does every single time it's a spotlight game. So I don't know if Iowa qualifies for that. It was a weird spot. I think looking at Michigan's pod, I don't think they're worried about Ohio State. Really anybody in that top half, Iowa, if Iowa gets through Ohio State. It's really that Illinois or Wisconsin game that both teams have the stretch fives that can pull Mara out, possibly play him off the floor, and just go offense for offense.
Yep. Elsewhere there, I mean, USC is a lame duck. Talk about a team in complete free fall mode. They'll take on Washington, who just blew them out in the opener. Christian, curious to get your thoughts on the top half and whether or not you see any team that you're potentially going to look at.
On Michigan, what's interesting about them is we only had that Wisconsin data point for so long as how do you beat them? And what did they hit? 7 threes in a row, 15 total. Obviously, Bielaskis goes crazy, and that's where the kind of bigs that can shoot it idea and, setting up for that matchup against Illinois. But to Greg's point, what to me the stronger data points are the game at Penn State, at Northwestern for the first half, Nebraska at home, and at Iowa. And it's these teams that can slow the game down. You got to slow the game down. You got to turn them over, and they got to shoot less than 30% from three. Those are the three factors. If it's not those things, I really don't think you can win. So like when I look at, the potential matchup against Illinois or Wisconsin in the second round, I don't think Iowa, after playing 2 games in a row, they just have to play an absolutely perfect game, right? And there's just so much on Sturtz's plate. Ohio State doesn't have the horses. So Illinois or Wisconsin, that game on paper should be interesting. And when I think of Illinois, I'm struggling a bit with Kylan Boswell. And I'm not going to come up here and create this narrative that they're worse without him, because I think he's a tremendous player and he gives them, like, they need him defensively. Like in that game they don't lose that game at home to Wisconsin if they have Kylan Boswell, because they're just getting absolutely carved up by Boyd and Blackwell. But with Wagler, like in the games where he hasn't played as well and hasn't been able to score as effectively, I'm kind of looking at Boswell and Stojakovic as part of the reason why, because I still have in my head this game at Mackey where every decision he made was perfect, the step back threes and everything, but like it was the play of Jake Davis and Hummerkaus and the Aviciches and their ability to shoot it that is so key. And Stojakovic and Boswell just mess with that a little bit because the spacing isn't as elite, because those two guys don't demand a closeout. But then of course, when those guys are off the floor, it's just not as good of a defensive team. So I feel like that's kind of been the struggle for Brad. And I say this as a team that's obviously 24-7 on the year, 5th in KenPom, 3 of their 4 losses since Christmas, coming in overtime. So like obviously it's still an elite team, and there's, as you point out, Stuckey, there's room for 3-point regression. I don't know. It'll be interesting. I wonder if that second stab at Michigan is their best chance. Is Michigan's best chance to lose. But that's what stands out to me about the top of the bracket.
Yeah, I mean, over the past, since Boswell returned, they haven't looked as elite, or I mean, were historically good offensively before he came back. We were just looking at their overall profile, but part of that is they shot 29.8% from three during those 6 games. So that I think that explains a lot of it. By the way, over that same stretch, Michigan State, who's not known for its shooting, has shot over 40%, and then Ohio State over the past 6 is 46%. Greg, do you have any thoughts on Boswell and like how does that fit in everything, offensively or defensively?
Yeah, I think he's more important to their defense than their offense. I also just, quite frankly, don't understand why he can't make shots. I mean, I know he had the broken hand or whatever, fractured wrist, but like he made shots at Arizona for 2 years. He was certainly billed as a guy that was supposed to make shots when he got to Illinois, and then year 1 at Illinois, he just didn't, and year 2 hasn't been much better. So I think he's their best perimeter defender. I think you want him out there. I think they run into issues when they play him and Stojakovic together, but I also think the staff has mostly navigated that and figured that out. That's why Jake Davis is into the lineup and Stojakovic is off the bench, which creates its own set of issues. But no, I think one more body that is focused on defense is only a good thing for Illinois, quite frankly, and they're going to need like when you think about a hypothetical Illinois-Michigan game, the reality is Illinois is going to need their top 5 guys to all play well. You don't beat Michigan if 3 of your 5 play well. Michigan State showed that tonight, and they're going to need Boswell to make a couple threes if they do.
It's also worth mentioning that I think this happened today, but Underwood came out and said that Stojakovic had a bad flu and lost like 10 pounds. When he was out a couple games. What's with Illinois and like flus and sicknesses? I feel like this is a thing every year in February and March.
Because it's the Underwooditis stuck, and he's very good at framing it as something else, but it's not that. There's some Stojakovic portal rumors going on behind the scenes. Brad was threatening not to bring him on the West Coast trip. Now he's sick that he's returned to the lineup. It's just classic Brad.
This always seems to happen with Illinois toward the end of the year. Let's move to the bottom half of the bracket. If the chalk holds, we would get Nebraska, Michigan State in the semis. It would be interesting if Nebraska played Michigan again. They can cause turnovers. They have Mast who can shoot. They gave Michigan a decent run, and they were not fully healthy earlier this season. But there are some potential other teams that could get there, namely Purdue, who, if they beat Indiana, Penn State, or Northwestern, would face Nebraska, and Purdue recently won at Nebraska, and then UCLA, if they get by Rutgers or Minnesota, would take on Michigan State. UCLA got destroyed at Michigan State earlier this season, but Michigan State shot what 14 of 26 from three. If Michigan State does that, they're going to destroy UCLA again. If they shoot like that from three, UCLA can keep them out of transition. Probably going to get crushed on the glass. One thing that I will bring up, UCLA, so they've had a lot of issues defending off the ball and with like cutting action. And so when they played Minnesota, Minnesota cut them up basically with a five-man lineup with no bench. And they were just getting destroyed by all of Medved's actions. In the presser after the game, Cronin said, if I play Minnesota again, I'll sit in a 2-3 zone for every second, which is like the most un-Cronin thing ever. And I was like, man, I hope we get to see. I want to see if he actually does it. I think over the first 5 years of his tenure at UCLA, he ran a total of 96 zone possessions. This year, he used a little bit more, 199. So he's more than doubled it. His total zone possessions over 5 years this year. And Cronin's talked a lot about how like you just can't get defenses just aren't at the same level because of the portal, NIL, right? You just don't have these guys that are around for years learning your defensive system. So I do want to see if Mick Cronin in a postseason game would go zone for an entire game, which is like the most un-Cronin thing ever. But first thoughts on the bottom half of the bracket, Greg.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a hard time not talking myself into a Purdue run here, and it's mostly draw related. They get Nebraska, who they have owned in the Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, Trey Kaufman Wren era. Game in Lincoln came down to the wire this year, but they were up 20 in the first half. They blitzed them in the meeting last year. It just really is schematic to me. Nebraska's whole swarm post touches, cut off dribble penetration, scramble to shooters, really bait you into 3-point attempts. That doesn't work against a Braden Smith-led offense with 40% shooters everywhere. They have shown the ability to carve this in the entirety of his tenure. I think they are going to salivate at that matchup, and I'd be very surprised if they struggle with it. If you assume they get through, a round one game would probably be Indiana, round two, Nebraska. Now you're in the semi. It's Michigan State or UCLA. Both games came down to the final possession. Purdue came out on the wrong side of those games, and I would like them in a rematch.
They had that UCLA game won. UCLA went on like a crazy run in the final minute.
Had it won, and I think they felt they were better than Michigan State in Mackey in that stretch as well. So, look, I've tried hard. I mean, I think this, Stuck, but I host a show with Braden Smith. I've tried very hard to stay away from just being biased to a guy I'm rooting for. This broke about as well as it could have for Purdue from a matchup standpoint. And I do know this. These guys take serious pride in the idea of winning in this league. And it weighs on them that they did not. This is the preseason number one team in the country. I don't think anyone envisioned Michigan being what they are. But these guys feel they did not hold up their end of the bargain at home. They're going to get some opportunities if this breaks the way I think it is to avenge some of those and maybe stare down Michigan in a championship rematch. So 9-1 is what I see Purdue at one sportsbook. I know you mentioned 6-1. Make sure you price shop out there, but 9-1, it's going to be on my card.
My only concern would be I don't hate that at 9-1, but my only concern would be we talked about this, like are they just ready for the actual tournament? This like very, the veterans of this team, are they ready to just get me to the tournament? And Painter, I think he's 1-10 against the spread in the tournament over the past 4 years.
I have two things on that, Stuck.
Yeah.
So, thing number one, Braden has the assist record to chase down. And they all know this. He needs games to do that. He's on pace at his current trajectory to do it in 5 games. You tell me, is that a national title run in March, or is that 3 games in the Big Ten tournament? And then, like, it's on track if you win a couple here. Second, Purdue, they've been accused of not taking the Big Ten title, tournament title, all that serious. And I think you go back, their freshman year, Braden Fletcher Trey, they lost to the 16 seed in the tournament after winning the Big Ten tournament. They all, whether right or wrong, the coaching staff sort of pinned the idea that we were out of gas because we made a run to the conference tournament title game. Since then, these last 2 years, they have managed those games. Matt Painter has managed those games in a sense of we're not interested in being here long.
Yeah.
If you listen to their senior day festivities, he promised the opposite. And it's a total change of tune. I mean, he told, maybe this is coach speak to fans, but
Sure.
he flat out said, listen, Braden's got an assist record. We need 3 games at the Big Ten tournament. We are going for that championship. Word for word.
So you think they're bought in? They're going to be bought in for this weekend?
It was enough for me because it's,
Yeah.
I mean, he has ducked it the last 2 years. And for him to be that direct about it, I just love the Nebraska matchup, right? If they get to that Nebraska game, that's the team they wanted to see. And then I think all bets are off from there.
I'm aligned there. Like the same thing came to mind of they haven't been good the last 2 Big Ten tournaments. Was it Maryland that beat the brakes off them last year, or was that Illinois? No, it was Michigan they lost to.
Michigan last year, yeah.
But considering, like, I understand the idea of when you're preseason number 1, when you've been there, done that in this league and in the NCAA tournament, what you're thinking about is cutting down the nets. And when things start to struggle, which, mind you, you lose to Illinois with an absolutely unconscious, like, A++ performance from them, a 2-point road loss on the West Coast. The Indiana game was tough. Purdue would have won that game if there was another minute on the clock, like they had figured things out. And things have been tougher lately. And you can point to a lot of different things that this team doesn't do great. And on the spectrum of the 4 seed last year when you had Heidi and Colvin and their defensive versatility and shooting on the wings versus what you picked up and just some added depth and you know, Cox getting better and Clough being able to dominate certain matchups, they fall somewhere in the middle from that preseason number 1 they were expected in that 4 seed that they were. And that 4 seed that they were could it be Houston? It came down to the last play. And they're 8th in KenPom after all of this and everyone wanting to crap on them and everything. So that leads me to, you know, total alignment of Purdue against Nebraska, out-rebounded them, 54-37, and Nebraska defensive rebounding has just been the way they guard. I know they grade out fine as a defensive rebounding team, but that's their biggest agenda. That's number 1 on the scouting report when they're playing Michigan State or Purdue or these teams. Illinois is, can we keep them off the offensive glass? And then on the emotional side, I just totally agree with Greg. This is their senior year now. You know, those 4. You're the 7th seed in the Big Ten. That is not what was the plan. So to win a Big Ten tournament, and I know, you know, Michigan got kind of screwed with a 5 seed last year. You know, maybe that's in mind of if we win the Big Ten tournament on Sunday, does that game even move us up a seed line? Could we get to a 2 after all this? We'll see. If they beat Michigan and, you know, if they beat Nebraska, Michigan State, and Michigan, they should be a 2 seed. There's a lot to play for. I still think they're a very, very good team. And stylistically, one other note, what was interesting about that Michigan game, a couple notes that stand out. Mara fouled out in 18 minutes. Number 2, they let TKR rock. They did the thing that UConn did for Zach Edey in the championship game. They said, if you want to go death by TKR, like, we can do that. But when Michigan shoots 57% from 3, they're going to beat everyone in the country. So, I don't know. For me, it's more like Jacobson out there when it's Mara is just a problem because Mara is just so much better than him. And they needed Omar Meyer to create for himself a bit. CJ Cox to me is the X factor. I was at the Purdue Northwestern game. Like, his ability to shoot from deep is so key. And when you speak of no Colvin and Heidi from last year, and like, if you want to say, is this team better with Clough or if you had Colvin and Heidi still, I lean towards Clough because it's just not sustainable to have TKR at the 5 in every matchup. I've been on and on about Purdue, but this is me saying if you can get them at 9-1, that's my bet too for this tournament.
Yeah. The thing is that Clough, then he makes it tough sometimes defensively in certain matchups. That's kind of the trade-off where they can get lost at times. But I'm going to make it a consensus. I agree with you guys. I think Purdue is the look in the bottom half. And then, we talked about Wisconsin, Illinois. You might get some help. One of them maybe knocks off Michigan, which obviously wouldn't hurt their probability. Yeah, that's all I have. UCLA is playing better, but they're in a different time zone. I can't.
I think
I just have
UCLA
to
can
say
make a
it's,
run in the.
Yeah, they
UCLA
can.
make a run
I
in
need
the
to
NCAA
see.
tournament.
I need to see them do it against Big Ten. I think they're like 21-3 at home against Big Ten teams over the last 2 years, and then they're like 3-12 in other time zones. It's pretty stark. But yeah, they could make a run. I mean, I don't think they match up terribly with Michigan State. I mean, Michigan State's going to crush them on the boards, but they can slow it down. Michigan State can't shoot well from three. If they do, it's lights out for UCLA. But I don't think they match up terribly. So yeah, I wouldn't mind anyone that wants to take a look at UCLA. Not for me though in this tourney.
What do you guys think about UCLA for the NCAA tournament?
I have a Final Four ticket.
Let's go. What are the odds?
Oh, I forget. This was like 110 to 1, I think. Something crazy.
No way.
Yeah.
I would look to get
Yeah,
them all.
100. I think it's down to like last I saw was like 75, 80 to 1. But much more to come on that front. We'll have tons of coverage of the NCAA tournament. Yeah, that'll do it for us. It covers that had you covered on the Big Ten, Conference USA, Big 12, ACC. Jim, myself, and Kai earlier covered 5 other leagues. That episode will be out shortly. We'll do 5 more tomorrow. Have you covered on all 31? Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to Christian and Greg for joining me. Thanks to our producer David on the back end. Most importantly, thanks to all of you for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, unsubscribe, tell a friend, tell an enemy, you know the drill. Leave a 5-star review if you get a chance. Really helps us out. Good luck on all of your wagers, your futures. Enjoy all of the madness. We'll catch y'all next week. Cheers.